All right, so hello everybody. So this is our first review in relation to the chapter 9 test that we're going to be having. I gave this out on Friday, so if you missed Friday, pick this up from me when you get into class, and then make sure you guys get this printed out and work on it. So this is a basic setup where this was the first of 2 reviews, and on this review in particular, I just wanted to focus on the basics, okay? See where you guys stood, if you didn't understand something. Then we went from there. So let's begin on this. So we have our list of vocabulary words, and you just had to match up what the terms and definitions were here. So on these terms and definitions, first one we have here is parabola, vertex, x-intercept, axis of symmetry, maximum, and solution. So what I did was we started off here with 1 at the top here. So this point, this graph, when you graph it up here at the top, this would be your vertex. Okay, this is the very first top point. It's also known as a maximum. Okay, think of it as riding a bike, or not riding a bike, climbing to the top of a hill. Climb to the top of a hill. When you get to the top, that's usually you're climbing up to the maximum, right? And then if you were to hike the Grand Canyon, you hike all the way down to the bottom. That's the minimum before you would come back up. Okay, so that's the kind of real world scenario. And then the next steps when? Solutions, and what is this? This is actually either or, it doesn't matter which way you go, but this is either the x-intercept or it's called the solution. All right, when we want to find the solution of an equation, the solution of the equation is actually the x-intercept. Doesn't matter which side they were on, but that was the setup there. Axis of symmetry is the line that you would draw right through. Now this line, axis of this line is imaginary. When I say imaginary, it's not like you usually write it. Okay, for this example though, see how it goes through -1? This example, this actually would be x equals -1 for this one. Because if I were to go into Desmos and graph this parabola, that's the last word here. If I were to graph this parabola or quadratic equation, and then I put in x equals -1, you would get a vertical line that would pass right through the middle of the graph, and that's what the axis of symmetry is. All right, next, number 7, it was talking about graphing these. All right, and if I can remember, let me make sure I can remember this correctly, and I think I'm going off memory on this one. I'm pretty sure you go 7 and 8 would be in Desmos. I'm pretty sure this is x is -1, then I'm pretty sure the vertex is -1, 4. I can't remember exactly if that's true, so please make sure you check my answers. All right, and this is a minimum. I do know that because of it's a positive number. Positive numbers always shoot down and come back up. The vertex would be the same. So if I got this vertex wrong, which you guys know what a vertex is by looking at it, please double check my work. And does it open, the parabola open up or does it open down? Okay, this case, since I know it's a minimum, it's going to open up. Then go to the next one. Axis of symmetry, I believe this one is x equals 4 because the vertex is 4, 5. And then this would be a maximum. And at 4, 5. And then will it open up or down? This one opens down, all right? A parabola opens down like that. Know that that's the setup. Now, verify this on Desmos. Make sure I put these in the right column. I'm pretty sure I did, based off of all the information I have. 4, talk about factoring. You factor this. This is a factoring setup. Remember, it would be A times C up here, and then B. So what is my A value? It's 1 times 4, which is 4. This is 5. Remember, this is multiply up here and add down here. So what 2 numbers would it be? It'd be 4 and 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So it's x plus 1 and x plus 4 equals 0. Please make sure you know that last piece. And then what would the actual answers be? To solve it, if I cover this up, x plus 1 equals 0. Well, what value of x would it have to be 0? It, of course, would be -1. If I cover that up, it'd be -4. There's my answer right there. And then the other one over here is do the square roots and solve for x. Can you take a square root of 10? No, you cannot. So you know you need to back that up a little bit and isolate it first. So let's divide both sides by 10. If you do that, you get x squared equals 16. X squared is a perfect square root, and so is 16. So ladies and gentlemen, you rewrite it with the square roots on it. So it'll be x squared square root equals plus or minus the square root of 16. Because remember, quadratics usually have 2 points. When it does the u coming up or down, it has 2 points that it crosses. So now you can solve. So your answer is going to be x, because square root of x squared is x, equals plus or minus 4. Now, you could also write it as x equals 4, negative 4. Now this, if you graph this, put this in Desmos and graph it, you should get an intersection at 4 and negative 4. And you know your answer is right. All right, this one here, when we had talked about graphing it, you put this equation in Desmos, okay? And when it graphs, your point that you come up is negative 2, negative 9 is my vertex. And what I talked about in class is picking 2 points to the left and 2 points to the right. So what I mean by that is I want to go negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, and 0. So I got 2 points going to the left. At negative 3, if you were to put this in Desmos, you would get negative 3, 8. And then at 4, it is negative 4, 5. Okay, so I know this is negative 4, 5, and this is negative 8. Then the question becomes, okay, if this is symmetry. Remember, if this is the vertex, okay, if this line here is the vertex, things are going to be symmetrical on the same side. So on this table, if I know that this is the vertex, this is 8. This point here should also be a negative 8. Okay, so I'd have a negative 8 right there. And then this point here would be negative 5. Okay, so I'd have a point at negative 5 right here. And then as it continues to go up, ladies and gentlemen, whatever point negative 5 is, the same will be on 1, vice versa. So as it goes out, okay, as it expands out, symmetry means if there's 1 point here, there's 1 here. And they would keep going up the row. Then we talked about quadratic formula. This is one of the hardest ones that's on here, okay? Quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And then what you had to do is fill in the blanks, okay? So a is 2, b is negative 6, c is negative 5. All right, and then you simply solve it out from there. B squared, so negative 6 times b, okay, would be 6 plus or minus the square root. 6 squared is 36. It doesn't matter that it's negative because the negative times the negative is a positive. Negative 4 is already there, times 2 times negative 5. And then you divide that by 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Then you simplify, okay? Cover this up and think about it. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 5 is positive 40. Okay, so it would be 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 plus 40 over 4, which would simplify to this 76 over 4. Question then became, are we done? Technically, no, we are not done at this point. I would want you guys to start thinking about, which we will hopefully dive into after we take the AC Merit and later in the spring, about doing this type of math and how complicated it can be. Okay, as we move into geometry and algebra 2, as we talked about in class, this math might be simple for you, but I need to make sure you guys can go farther down a rabbit hole and actually this time pull the pieces apart and make sure there's nothing else that you can do. When it comes to a square root, you need to make sure, so if I have 76 up here, you need to make sure that it cannot be broken out by 4, 9, 16, or 25, okay? Because those are perfect squares. And so the question is can 4 go into 16? Well, technically it can. If you go in your calculator, 76 divided by 4, you will get 19. So this is going to be 6 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 19, all over 4. And then where did I get this number? Okay, I got this. 4 times 19 is in fact 76, okay? So now you finish it off. 6 plus or minus square root of 4 is 2, and b square root of 19 all over 4. Am I done now? The question is no. Can you factor a 2 out of all of this? Or divide a 2 out? You can. You can divide and simplify. So this would be, if you divided 2 out of here, your final answer would be 3. Divided 2 out of there, that would be 1. So we don't write that. It'd be 19 all over 2. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your final answer. Hard problem. I want to make sure you guys can do it. Factoring. These are all the same, okay? But I want to make sure you can do the steps in the process. Factoring here, same thing. 12 on top, negative 8 on the bottom. What two numbers would it be? Negative 6 times negative 2 is 12. You add them, you get negative 8. So my answers are going to be x minus 6 and then x minus 2 equals 0. So in fact, x is going to equal 6 and 2. So that's my answer. So the good news is I know the answer. This answer is going to be the same across the board, but I want you to make sure you can show me the work on doing it. As I explained, the test, remember, is going to be in 2 parts. One of them is going to be fill in the, it's going to be not word problems, but it's going to be a function where you got to tell me exactly what the definitions are and show me your work as you're working through, like for example, completing the square. First step would be to subtract 12 from both sides. When you complete the square, you're looking at writing up. So if I subtract 12 from both sides, okay, I know now I get x squared minus 8x, and then it's going to be plus something we don't know yet, equals negative 12 plus the same number. All right, and then what you do is you got to take your, what's called completing the square, you take your b value, which is negative 8, and you divide it by 2. That would equal negative 4. You take that number and you square it to get 16. So what number goes in up here to complete the square? It is 16. Now you work on it. Factor it out. Okay? 16 on the top, negative 8 on the bottom. What two numbers would it be? Negative 4 and negative 4. Okay? Negative 4 times would be 16. Negative 4 added would be negative 8. Now, instead of us writing x minus 4 2 times, we just put a square, and then negative 12 plus 16 equals 4. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to complete the square, you actually have to take the square root. Okay, so when you take the square root of these, you get x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 4. Everybody knows that the square root of 4 is 2. So you would split this answer up at this point. X minus 4 equals 2, and then x minus 4 equals negative 2. And then when you add 4 to both sides on this one and on this one, you would end up with 6 and 2. Okay, hopefully you guys understood that whole process as we went along. Quadratic formula, same setup, just a little bit harder math. ABC, 1, negative 8, and 12. So when you do the same setup, okay, do the formula. The formula I have above. So this is going to be b, it's going to be negative b, so it's going to be 8 plus or minus the square root of 64, because that's b squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2, okay, because it's 2 times a, so it's 2. Now this one's particular because it doesn't actually get rid of the negative. So this would be 8 plus or minus the square root of 64, and that's minus 4 times 12, which is 48, and then you divide that by 2. And then how your setup would be, your final setup on this would be subtract these out. Okay, so this would be 16, so it would be 8 plus or minus the square root of 16 over 2, which is, of course, 8 plus or minus 4 over 2. And then you would finish off your piece of the puzzle. All right, so it would be 8 plus 4 over 2, and then it would be 8 minus 4 over 2. So when you're factoring like this, 12 divided by 2 is 6, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So when you're finishing off with this, one thing you guys got to know is I got 6 and 2 all the way across the board. Quadratic formula can be very helpful, even if you don't like to factor like this anymore, or especially completing the square. If you don't want to complete the square and you have the a, the b, and the c, then guess what you can do? Technically, you can use the quadratic formula, and you'll always get the right answer. You guys just need to know the math on it. And then you go from there. And then this one right here is describe all the transformations of the function of negative 2x minus 3, and then it's going to be plus 4. So I know by looking at this that my vertex, if I were to graph this in Desmos, okay, which you could, you can put it in Desmos, but I'm not going to because I know pretty much all the functions based off of this because I'm a math teacher and I've memorized it so far up to this. If you ask me 3 weeks from now, could I do this? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know. But I do know the vertex on this is my HK. And my H is 3. So my vertex form of the equation, just to let you guys know, is f of x equals a, and then it is x minus h squared plus k. Okay, so this is set up in the proper context. My h is always my x, so it's going to be 3. And then my k is my y, so it's 4. That's my vertex. And then it's going to ask me what other transformation is it? Well, if I want to know that this functionality moved to the, it goes, if it's 3, 4, it's going to the right 3, and then it went up 4. I do know that. What other transformation would it have had? Well, I do know that this is going to be axis of symmetry. Equals, it's the same as the x value here, so I do know that it equals x equals 3 is the axis of symmetry. What else would I need to know? I know if my point is at 3, 4, I do know that this is going to be a maximum. I know that it's a maximum because of this value right here. Because this is a negative, I do know that the arch is going to be like this and that we're going to have a maximum point. And so in that case, my range is actually going to be y is greater than or equal, since it's a, it's a maximum. That's not right. All right, if it's a maximum, it's sitting like this. That means this point's going to be the highest and every value is going to be under it. So I do know it's going to be y, and it's going this way. And then my vertex is 3, 4. I know that as well. Okay, that's the kind of stuff I need to make sure you guys can understand. And then explain what it means to have no solution for quadratic functions when looking at a graph. It means the graph does not cross the x-axis. That's what it means. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this review. If you're struggling with anything, please make sure over the weekend, this is a homework assignment, please make sure you finish it. Get it into me, okay? I'm going to probably put this as one of those exit ticket ones, which is worth a little bit more. Get this into me because I want to make sure that you guys understand the functionality and where you struggle before Monday. Okay, Monday is going to be February 25th, I believe, okay? So make sure you guys get in on Monday, figure out what you need, and go from there. If you have any questions, come see me, send me a message on Remind, or shoot me an email. Otherwise, good luck, have a good weekend, and then I look forward to seeing you on Monday.